This story begins like most, with a girl. Her name was Sarah. It was the first weekend of summer. I knew Michael my whole life and we did everything together growing up. We stayed best friends even throughout high school, despite the fact that Michael was very popular. I hate to admit it now, but there was a time where I was jealous of Michael because it seemed so effortless for him. He was tall, attractive, dominated in every sport he played, and was really laid back. He was someone you wanted to be around, especially the girls. That's the part that made me jealous the most. I wasn't unpopular, I just wasn't Michael. And since he was my best friend, girls would use me in order to get to him. It was cool at first because sometimes I would get a makeout session out of it, but knowing I was always second to Michael made me resent him a little. It was an insecurity I had, but then I realized it wasn't Michael's fault and I couldn't stay mad at him because he was my best friend after all. And no matter how popular he got or how many parties he got invited to, he always made time for game night. It was very nostalgic for us because we would pull all-nighters while my mother was at work. My mother worked nights at the hospital and my father left us a long time ago. So playing video games with Michael was a good way to pass the time. I think Michael felt sorry for me in a way, which is why he would always come over and play with me, or maybe he honestly had just as much fun as I did. I don't know. All I know is that I had fun playing and things didn't change as we got older. The only thing that changed was sometimes he brought over a girl. Most of the girls he brought over didn't like video games, so that meant that after 20 minutes or so, the girl would get bored and start complaining, which led to Michael asking if he could borrow my room. I would always say yes because I didn't want to be a cockblock, and honestly I just wanted to get back to the game. I swear Michael saw more action in my room than I did. What I found hilarious about the situation was that he never went past 10 minutes when he used my room. I never told him this, but I would set a timer whenever the door closed to when it would open again, and I would see his ridiculous conquering smile. His best time was 8:42. No matter how many girls he saw, he could never top that. I figured he'd top that one day by all the practice he got, but he never did. After the deed was done, like clockwork, the girl would make an excuse to leave and then Michael would very politely see her out. Like I said, it didn't happen very often, but when he did, it was always routine. That's why it surprised me when I heard a knock on the door. "Who's that?" I asked.
"Oh, that's Sarah. Remember? I told you she was gonna hang out with us tonight."
That's right. I totally forgot. I hope you don't mind dirty sheets. They haven't been washed since the last time you used my room.
Nah, she's not like that, man. You'll actually like this one.
Michael got up from the couch, walked to the front door, and answered it. That's when I saw a short girl wearing glasses and an oversized hoodie holding her own controller.
"You ready to get your ass kicked?"
She smiled and gave Michael a hug. I was absolutely shocked. This wasn't the type of girl Michael usually brings around on game nights. Not saying Sarah wasn't attractive. She was cute in a nerdy type of way. She was petite, had long brown hair, and freckles all across her face. The more I studied her, the more I can see why Michael invited her over. After she hugged him, she walked towards me.
"So is this the guy?"
Yeah, the one, the only.
She looked at me as if she was sizing me up, like a fighter looking for a weakness in their opponent.
"Michael told me that you're pretty good at Mario Kart."
Well, I've been kicking Michael's ass for years. That's why he always sits funny.
Well, let's see if you can back up those words.
After playing Mario Kart for a few hours, I couldn't believe how good Sarah was. I could tell she was a genuine gamer. She was competitive and talked a lot of shit. She got first more times than I thought she would, but that's because she was lucky and always got the blue shell at the right times. What's more amazing than that was how easily Sarah fit in. She was good at video games, incredibly witty, and funny. I don't remember laughing so hard during game night. Michael was right. I did like her, and if things didn't go to utter shit, I probably would have dated her. I remember getting hungry and looking at the time. It was almost 9 p.m., so I ordered some pizza as we continued to play. Once the pizza arrived, we all agreed to take a break and eat. We all gathered around the dining room table and continued talking. This was turning out to be a great night, until Sarah asked a question. It seemed innocent at first, but little did I know that this question would snowball into many horrible decisions and force me to do terrible things.
So, do you know any good scary stories?
She directed this question at me and my mind went blank. No, not really, I said. I only know about Bloody Mary. She rolled her eyes and looked unimpressed. But it was true. I didn't really care about horror movies or stories. All that stuff was stupid to me. The last horror movie I saw was Chucky, and I didn't even finish the movie because I found it to be more ridiculous than scary.
Everyone knows the story about Bloody Mary, but do you know about the Goatman?
No, sounds stupid, I said.
Let me guess. It's about a story of how a guy who sleeps with a goat and then the goat gives birth to half man, half goat?
No, Michael, that's not the story, dumbass. I'm talking about something real. A monster from the Bible.
Oh, wait a minute. I haven't read the Bible entirely, but I don't remember anything about a goat man.
You're right, it doesn't. But the origin story of the Goatman is in there.
I knew this was going to be a bunch of BS, but doesn't mean I wasn't a little bit interested. Go on, I said sarcastically. Tell us all about this goat man.
Do either one of you know the term scapegoat?
Yeah, it's when someone takes the blame for you.
Oh, well, color me impressed. You're not a total lost cause after all, Michael. You're right, but did you know where the phrase comes from?
Michael and I both shook our heads no.
Well, it comes from Leviticus, and during the Day of Atonement, Jewish priests would lay their hands on a goat and put the sins of the people in it. They would also tie a red thread to the goat's horn to symbolize the sins of the community. Then they would banish the goat into the desert.
And what does that have to do with the goat man?
I was getting to that. So since the goat was harboring the people's sin, the theory is that's how the Sarium was created, aka the goat man. Ser being the ordinary Hebrew word for he-goat. These are a type of demon that roam the earth, so if you aren't chicken shit, I know a way you can see one.
I was impressed by how smart Sarah was. Now normally, stories like these don't appeal to me, but I was captivated by Sarah and wanted to spend more time with her. It was getting late and I figured if I went along, then she would stay longer. What do you mean, see one? I asked.
Oh, curious are we?
Maybe. I'm just more interested in proving your urban legend is a fake.
So you're saying you'll do the goat man ritual?
The what?
You heard me. A ritual that summons the goat man.
I glanced over at Michael and he looked perplexed as I did.
Have you ever done this goat man ritual?
Of course. It's how I know it will work. If you do the ritual correctly, the goat man will show itself, eat the offering, and then just go back into the woods. Do you have milk or some sort of grain?
Does it have to be goat milk?
No, any type of milk will do.
Okay, well, there's reduced in the fridge and there's some rice in the pantry.
Perfect. Oh, we'll need a knife as well.
What the hell? Why do we need a knife? I'm not gonna be a sacrifice tonight.
Don't be silly, Michael. You just need to prick your finger. Think you can handle that?
Not gonna lie, this is a little weird, Sarah.
I agreed with Michael. This was weird, and I was starting to think Sarah was a bit of a psycho, but my hormones were telling me to play along. I was still captivated by Sarah and wanted to be around her. Oh, come on, Michael. Where's your sense of adventure? Plus, I am sure this is all BS.
It's not. Trust me, you will believe in the goat man after you see him.
Yeah, and if you get a little tetanus along the way, just chalk that up to experience. I looked at Sarah and gave her a smile. I could tell she got a little shy, because her face turned red as she smiled and quickly looked away. Still got it, I told myself. Sarah went to the kitchen and got the milk and rice, while I went to my room and got my pocket knife out of my drawer. Then I went to the bathroom and got some Band-Aids. I went back into the room and found Sarah and Michael standing near the table. What now? I asked.
We have to go to the woods.
Really this late?
Yeah, Sarah, this is starting to sound like a horror movie that I don't want to be a part of.
Oh, calm down. We don't have to go deep into the woods. We could be right on the edge. We just need to be in a remote location in order for this to work.
There was a patch of woods about 2 blocks away from my house, so that was convenient. I suggested we walk there. The neighborhood was safe and I wasn't expecting anything dangerous to happen. I go on night walks all the time by myself. So we left my house and started walking to the woods. There was a full moon and The night wind felt great across my face. Considering the atmosphere, it was still a good night. It still shocked me how well Sarah fit into the mold. I noticed that as we walked, Michael pulled back and let me and Sarah walk side by side as we continued to joke with one another. I figured he was interested in her since he invited her over after all, but it almost felt like he was playing matchmaker. I didn't mind. Hell, maybe I'll be the one using my own room tonight. It wasn't long until we were standing in front of the woods. This is it? What do we do next?
We go inside and say hi.
I turned to Michael, and I will never forget the look on his face. He looked unsettled, like a scared puppy. As Sarah began to walk into the woods, Michael grabbed me by the arm and whispered,
Do you really think we should be doing this?
No, I said, but I think Sarah likes me and I need this. My comment seemed to lighten the mood because Michael replied,
I'm glad you finally figured it out. I was running out of hints for you.
We both smiled and followed Sarah into the woods. We didn't go too far in. We could still see the streetlights, but I did notice how cold the night was becoming.
Okay, now's the time for the fun part. All you have to do is pour the rice on the ground next to that tree. Then pour the milk on top of the rice, prick your finger, and just add 1 drop of blood on the rice and milk.
That's it? It's that easy?
Nope. Then you say the magic word,
And that would be?
kata.
What the hell did you just call us?
Kata is Hebrew. It means sin, you idiots.
So this is the part of the movie where we get mauled by the Goatman and Michael survives because he's a virgin?
Funny. If that were the case, then you'd be the one that survives.
I tried my best to play off what Michael said because he was fully aware that I was indeed a virgin, and for some reason, I didn't want Sarah to know that. So I quickly changed the subject. I guess I'll start with the rice, I said out loud. I ripped the bag open and poured some rice on the ground near the closest tree. Michael, who was holding the milk, poured some on the rice.
What's the point of the milk?
I think milk symbolizes innocence. That's why you always see the bad guys in movies drink milk. It symbolizes them consuming innocence and then putting them in a commanding position.
Wow, you really are a nerd, Sarah.
Shut up! You're still bitter I beat you in Mario Kart.
It impressed me how Sarah just knew things. Like I said, if things were different, I could probably see myself being happy with her. After Sarah made that comment, I reached into my back pocket and pulled out my knife. I switched to the blade and I just stared at it. I think Michael and I were sharing the same thought. Maybe this was a bad idea after all. Still trying to impress Sarah, I told myself, screw it, and pricked the tip of my finger until it drew blood. I then gave the knife to Michael. Don't worry, my blood test came back negative, I tried joking with Michael. He gave me a uncomfortable smile.
Well, it's hard to be positive when you're a virgin.
He then pricked his finger and we both held our hands over the rice. As a few drops of our blood spilled on top of the rice and milk, we both said the magic word, kata. We waited for a few moments and peered through the woods expecting to see the Goatman, but nothing happened. All we heard were trees moving with the wind. See, I told you this was all bullshit, I said, trying to break the silence.
Did we say kata right?
Yeah, the Goatman is just busy with another ritual.
I no longer felt unsettled, and I could tell Michael didn't either. Well, I'm bored, let's go back to my house, I said out loud.
Yeah, it's getting cold too.
We started walking back, with Sarah and I in front and Michael in the back, grinning and giving me the thumbs up. The moonlight was perfect, as it accentuated Sarah's smile. Even that night, she was radiant. I hate saying this. Even thinking about it pisses me off, but Sarah looked absolutely stunning that night. She was intoxicating and I was drunk just being around her. As we got back to my house, we stood on my front porch.
This was fun. We should all hang out again soon.
You leaving already? Don't tell me you're scared of getting your ass kicked at Mario Kart again.
Oh, please. Definitely not the reason. It's late and my mom is going to worry if I'm not home soon.
This is when Michael pulled the ultimate wingman move. He gave Sarah a hug and said,
Thanks for coming, Sarah. It's fun having you around.
He then looked over at me and winked.
You should walk Sarah to her car. I need to use the restroom.
Michael very quickly opened the front door and went inside my house, leaving Sarah and I all alone on the porch. I remember it being silent. almost too silent. There were no neighborhood sounds of dogs barking or cars driving by. In fact, the wind stopped blowing as well. It felt like Sarah and I were the only people in the world. This is the first time I felt weird around her. Awkward silence was an understatement. I didn't know if Sarah felt the same way as I did. We stood together only for a few moments, but it felt like hours. Why was I not saying something? That's when Sarah smiled and simply said,
So when are you gonna kiss me?
"What?" I replied in shock.
You're terrible at this.
She grabbed my jacket and pulled me towards her. Sarah's face was so close to mine, our noses almost touched. She then whispered.
Your move.
I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the back of her hair and kissed her. Now, I've kissed girls before, but this was different. Euphoria shot down my spine. I felt sensations throughout my body that I've never experienced before. I didn't want to stop. It wasn't until Sarah put her hands on my face and then very lightly pulled away that we stopped.
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad yourself, I said, trying my best to sound cool. Sarah then grabbed my hand and we started walking towards her red Ford Focus. Once we got to the driver's side of the car, I pulled Sarah close to me and we started kissing again. The sensations were still there and I was addicted. 5 minutes went by and then Sarah pulled back again.
I had a really good time, but I need to get back home.
Ugh, do you really have to go?
Yeah, I'm already past curfew and my mom is gonna be pissed if I don't get home soon.
I shook my head in agreement and opened the door for her.
Wow, what a gentleman.
Yeah, I was hoping it would get you to kiss me again. Sarah smiled and then gave me one last kiss.
We should hang out again sometime.
Yeah, we should. She then got into her car and said goodbye with a smile. I closed her door. Sarah waved and drove off. Yeah, I still got it. As I stood gawking at the stop sign, that's when I heard the strangest yell come from the woods. It scared me and I didn't move. I was trying to decide if what I heard was real or in my head. I heard it again, but this time it was a little louder, like it was traveling. This is when I bolted as fast as I could back into my house, slamming the door behind me. Michael was in the living room.
Damn, did Sarah scare you off?
You didn't hear it?
Hear what?
The yelling from the woods, you didn't hear it.
Nice try, but you're not gonna scare me.
I'm being serious. I heard something in the woods and I think it's getting closer.
You're really not giving up on this, are you?
Damn it, Michael, I'm being fucking serious.
Okay, man, I believe you.
I'll go check the back door and make sure it's locked. You stay here. I ran down the hall to find that the back door was locked. Then I ran back to the living room where I found Michael staring out of the window. Michael, get away from there. Whatever is out there, it's gonna see you.
Okay, you really need to drop the act. There's nothing out there.
I walked to the window and peered out of it and saw nothing. Michael was right. It was silent and nothing out of the ordinary. I turned to Michael and said, I swear I heard something.
I'm sure you did. Probably a coyote or something.
No, this definitely was no coyote. I really can't explain what it sounded like. Unnatural?
Well, whatever you heard isn't there now. Let's get back to playing.
I started to calm down when I saw that there was nothing unusual outside. Maybe it was just all in my head, I thought to myself. But I swore I heard something. Michael and I then sat back on the couch and started playing Mario Kart.
You're welcome, by the way.
Michael said, smiling.
I knew you two would hit it off, but I didn't expect it to go that well. I'm surprised you didn't get to use your own room tonight.
Shut up. Where did you even meet Sarah?
Oh, I was at a party and some of the people I was with knew her. We started talking and she reminded me a lot of you. Very dorky and a smartass.
Hey, I'm not a dork.
Says the one playing Mario Kart.
I couldn't lie. He got me there.
Anyway, I felt like I owed you one, since you're always cool about letting me use your room from time to time. So I told her about game night and invited her to join us sometime.
We continued to play games and hang out. The rest of the night I was conflicted with two thoughts. If I really did hear something in the woods, and Sarah. We kept playing until my mom came home from the hospital. I remember her hugging me very tightly that night. She said there was a boy involved in a car wreck. His car flipped like 8 times and he was in critical condition. She said he probably fell asleep at the wheel and that she couldn't help but think of me. It was weird because my mom hardly ever gets emotional about things like that because she's seen it all. Michael and I comforted her, and that was the cue that we should probably go to bed. So we did. I couldn't fall asleep right away. I was still thinking about what I heard from the woods. It bothered me so much that I asked Michael, "Do you think the Goatman is real?"
Seriously? You're still thinking about that?
Yeah.
Sarah was just fucking with us. There's no such thing as a Goatman.
The more I thought about it, Michael was right. Michael fell asleep immediately after that. He was always able to fall asleep so quickly, even after watching a scary movie. I stayed up only for a little bit, wondering what made that noise from the woods. Probably was a coyote, just a really large coyote. The thought calmed me enough that I eventually started dozing off. I closed my eyes and went to sleep. When I woke up, Michael was already gone. I guess he already left for practice. My mother was still asleep, so I made myself breakfast and just had a lazy Sunday. As I lounged around my house, I sent a text to Michael asking for Sarah's number. I was still high on the thought of her that I forgot to actually get her number. Michael didn't respond. I figured he was just busy, so I didn't think anything of it. I went to bed early that Sunday, and it was the only peaceful sleep I was going to have for a while. The following morning, I went to school and didn't see or hear from Michael at all, which was weird because I usually see Michael before school starts. When I didn't see him at lunch, that's when I knew something was wrong. That's when I sent him a message. "Are you alive?" I asked some of our mutual friends at lunch if they had heard from Michael, but they all said no. I asked if Michael messaged them back to let me know. I was getting worried. This wasn't like Michael at all. When I got home from school, so many thoughts crossed my mind, but the most ridiculous one that I couldn't shake off was, maybe the Goatman was real. No, there's no way in hell that could be true, right? I was pacing in my living room. I must have called and messaged Michael at least 100 times, but all my calls would go to voicemail and my messages were being ignored. This is when I started to panic. My whole body was under stress. I felt every heartbeat pumping frantically through my chest. I couldn't think or process a thought. I had to be moving constantly. I think I was having a panic attack. I wouldn't be able to calm down until I knew where Michael was. Michael was the closest thing I had to a brother. He was always there for me, and I don't know what I would do if something horrible happened to him and I was the reason for it. That my selfish desires for Sarah would be a reason for his disappearance. No, it can't be true. There's no such thing as a fucking Goatman. It's just an urban legend. It's not true. Then suddenly my phone began to ring. I didn't even check the screen. I just answered right away and said, "Michael, where are you?"
Hey, I was just about to ask you that. Do you know where Michael is?
It wasn't Michael. It was his mother. No, he hasn't been home?
Not since he stayed with you.
You mean Saturday?
Yeah.
My stomach dropped. I felt an incredible pain in my chest. I started to hyperventilate.
He said he was staying with you this weekend, and I thought he went to school. He hasn't come home from practice.
I dropped my phone on the floor. I was numb. I felt a state of shock that I've never felt before. I stayed like that for a while, but I couldn't take it anymore. I ran out of my house to the woods as fast as I could. Once I got to the woods, I started to yell. Bring him back, you son of a bitch! Bring him back! I started sobbing as I fell on my knees, defeated. I couldn't control my emotions. I started punching the ground violently. Not knowing what to do was one of the worst feelings in this world. I eventually ran out of energy and laid on the ground, staring aimlessly at the clouds in the sky. I wanted whatever that thing was, the fucking Goatman, to get me too. Maybe if I just laid here, he would. Perhaps it would take me to Michael or devour me right here. I didn't care. Either one of those scenarios would be better than this. When I was done sulking, I got up from the ground and walked home. A few hours passed and the cop showed up at my front door. Michael's mom filed a missing people's report, and they had questions for me since I was the last person to see Michael. They asked me so many questions. and specifics about the last night I was with Michael. I told them everything, even about visiting the woods. I left out the part as why we went. I just said we wanted to go for a walk. I didn't want to sound crazy to them, telling them, oh yeah, by the way, I already have a suspect. He's an ancient half-goat demon. I am sure they would send me straight to the asylum, or worse, think that I had something to do with Michael's disappearance. After they got what they wanted, the police left and I was alone again. I just went into my room. I closed my bedroom door and just laid on my bed. I stared at my ceiling. I never felt so lost before. So many thoughts ran throughout my head, but at the same time, my mind was blank. Now I know what it feels like when someone you love goes missing. I felt so helpless. I didn't move from my spot. I just sat in the darkness as it got late. I was in a grief-stricken coma. I didn't snap out of it until my alarm clock went off at 7:30 a.m. I let it ring for a while, but then eventually got up and turned it off. I realized I was in the same clothes as yesterday. This didn't bother me, but it'd probably be a good idea to at least change. I put on some deodorant and walked to my mom's room, where I found her asleep. She looked so peaceful. I envied her at that moment and wondered if she'd feel the same as I did if I were to disappear. I didn't eat breakfast. I just went straight to the car, turned the ignition on, and just sat there as the motor ran. There's no way in hell I was gonna go to school today. I kept replaying the last night I was with Michael and remembered Sarah. I started to get angry. This was her fault, her doing. I needed answers, and I needed to see Sarah immediately. Even though I didn't have her number, I remembered the conversation I had with Michael. I remembered the school he said she was from. I put the name of the school into my phone's GPS and took off. It was a 45-minute drive because of the morning traffic, and by the time I got to the school, classes had already started. This didn't bother me, it just gave me time to think about what I was going to ask Sarah. It didn't take me long to spot her red focus. I parked close by and just waited. That numbing feeling came over me again. I sat in silence, just staring at her car. I felt like a creep, but didn't care. I was going to speak with Sarah one way or another. The final bell rang, and soon the parking lot was full of kids. It didn't take long for me to spot Sarah walking to her car. She was wearing an oversized sweater with leggings. How I wish things turned out differently, because she was beautiful. I got out of my car quickly. I yelled out, "Sarah!" She jumped as I yelled, and then turned to me with a look of puzzlement. She was trying to remember who I was. When she finally recognized me, she greeted me with a smile and gave me a hug. I don't know what perfume she was wearing, but every time I smell it, I think about Sarah's beauty and how awful this moment was.
Couldn't wait to see me again?
She said in a flirty manner.
I was waiting for your text. You know you could have gotten my number from Michael.
Her words cut through me like a knife, especially when she said Michael.
Are you alright? You seem tense right now.
The worried look on her face was evident that she was uncomfortable. Not really. Can we go somewhere in private to talk?
Sure. Is everything okay?
No. Michael is missing.
Oh my god.
She put her hands over her mouth. I could tell her reaction was genuine. Yeah, could we please go somewhere? I don't want to talk in front of all these people.
Yeah, there's the park nearby. Just follow me.
I shook my head in agreement and walked back to my car. I followed Sarah to the park where it was empty. I got out of my car and walked to Sarah's car. She was leaning on the driver's side door. She began the conversation.
How long has Michael been missing?
Since the weekend, I answered.
Do you have any idea where he would go?
No, that's why I came to see you. Sarah seemed puzzled with my response.
Why would I know where he is?
I took a deep breath and waited to reply, because I knew what I was about to ask would sound crazy. But Michael was missing and I was desperate. Have you ever seen the Goatman? Sarah's expression said it all. She looked at me the same way you would at a homeless person talking to themselves.
What?
I know, this doesn't make sense, but when you did the ritual, did the Goatman show up?
You think the Goatman took him?
I don't know what to fucking think, Sarah. I just know we did that stupid ritual and Michael's gone. I could feel a fire begin to ignite in my stomach. The way Sarah was looking at me, like I was crazy for even asking such a question. I couldn't handle that right now. Not after everything I've been through. I know now what it feels like to not be believed, for someone to question your sanity, to be called crazy. What an ugly word. I hate that fucking word. What Sarah said next made me lose my shit.
I've never done the ritual.
What? What do you mean you haven't done the ritual?
That's what I mean. I've never done it.
Are you fucking serious? You said you did. You lied?
I didn't think it was a big deal. I read about the ritual and I thought it would be fun.
The anger that I felt at the pit of my stomach now erupted throughout my whole body. Fun? You thought the ritual would be fun?
I didn't think any harm would come from it. I'm sorry.
You used Michael and I as guinea pigs for some ritual you read about?
Just calm down. You're not thinking straight.
Calm down?
Yes, calm down. I'm sure there's an explanation for Michael.
Don't you dare say his name. And I'm not thinking straight. You lied to us. You made us fuck around with things you had no idea about.
I didn't know.
Exactly, you didn't. And now Michael is gone.
I think you should leave.
I couldn't believe she said that. She created this mess and now she was washing herself from it like she wasn't responsible for it. That's it? You're gonna run away from it like it's not your fault that he's gone?
What do you want me to do? I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation why Michael is gone, but you're just looking to blame someone for something you can't control.
Sarah had a point. I was looking to blame someone. Even now, she was able to think soundly, but the anger and stress made me incapable to see that, so I continued to yell at Sarah. No, Michael would never leave like that. He would have told me. The cops have been looking for him, and there's no way someone would have taken him. He wouldn't allow it. Something unnatural happened to him. Plus, I heard something that night after you left.
What do you mean you heard something?
Whenever you left, I heard a yell, or at least I think it was a yell. It sounded like it could have been an animal. I don't know. It was a screaming I've never heard before.
It was probably just a coyote.
Don't you think I know what a coyote sounds like?
You're just trying to rationalize what you think you heard and connecting it with Michael's disappearance.
I told you not to say his fucking name. I was getting angrier with the way Sarah was looking at me and how she was trying to justify everything.
Look, I can't help you and you need to leave.
That's it. That's all you have to say. I could see fear in Sarah's eyes as she opened the car door. No, she wasn't gonna get off that easy. Due to the rage and reflex, I grabbed the door and prevented her from opening it all the way.
Fuck off!
She kicked me in the groin and I fell to my knees. The anger I felt was now clouded by pain. I couldn't see anymore. My vision was obscured as I was blacking out. I laid in the fetal position, grabbing my groin as Sarah closed the door and sped off. Some of the parking lot gravel hit me in the face from Sarah's tires, which made the scene more pathetic. I couldn't speak, no matter how hard I tried. The pain was unbearable, especially when the adrenaline started to wear off. Even though Sarah was a small girl, she definitely knew how to kick the shit out of somebody. Eventually, I got to my feet and staggered back to my car. I sat in silence for a while as I grimaced in pain. When the pain finally subsided, I realized that I was never going to see Sarah again. The more I look back on what happened, I wish I didn't get so angry. But I couldn't help it. After the stress and the feeling of emptiness, I needed to fill that void, and I did it with anger. After a while, I came to my senses. I started my car and drove home. Whenever I got back to my bedroom, I began to cry. I never felt so alone before. If you're an only child, you know how important friendships are. They mean more because you choose your family, and Michael was always there for me. I think he enjoyed knowing that I looked at him as a brother. The more I pictured a life without Michael, the more I cried. After my tear ducts dried up and I couldn't physically cry anymore, I laid in the darkness of my bedroom, my pillow and sheets soaked from all my tears. I didn't care. Nothing made sense anymore. The stress and adrenaline from the day finally got to me. My body was forcing me to rest and shutting down. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. I woke up in a panic. The scream I heard from the woods now came from within my room, and it was deafening. I was expecting to see an animal or the Goatman in my bedroom, but I didn't. Instead, it was Michael. He was standing at the end of my bed. I noticed he had a scar on the side of his cheek, and he had his father's gun pointed directly at me. I was conflicted and overwhelmed with so many emotions all of a sudden. Happiness, confusion, fright. I didn't know what to feel. Michael had a crazed expression across his face. I've never seen this look before. It was terrifying. Michael, where have you been? I tried my best to sound calm.
He's everywhere. He's everywhere.
He replied with the gun still pointed at me. Who is everywhere? What are you talking about?
He tells me to do bad things. I don't want to do them, but I can't help it. He's always around. He's in my head.
Michael, you're not making sense. Who is telling you to do bad things? Michael ignored my question and cocked the gun. Michael, what are you doing? He slowly raised the gun to his head. Michael, stop!
He'll never leave me alone.
Michael, we will figure this out together. You don't need to do this.
I'm so sorry.
Michael, no, Michael!